Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well. And today, the news just keeps getting worse for Disney and Marvel, seeing that now you have Stan Lee's daughter ripping them a new one with the quote, "No one could have treated my father worse." Now, of course, the big news that has been really dominating everything in the news lately as far as movies are concerned is the fact that the Sony and Disney deal at this point seems to be done. Doesn't seem likely that they will be coming back to the table, though I think that, as I said, there definitely could be a chance that Disney might come back and say, maybe we won't take nearly as much. Maybe we can make a deal, because I honestly think that it's bad for both of them. I think it's bad for Disney because Disney was putting all of their money behind Spider-Man being the new heart and soul of the Avengers, and that no longer seems to be possible if they are not in conjunction with each other. But it's also not great for Sony either, because it's really yet to be seen whether or not Sony can handle their own Spider-Verse and be able to do it pretty well. And we can look back at Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, but then you can't forget Spider-Man 3. But then you have to go back to The Amazing Spider-Man, and then you can't forget Amazing Spider-Man 2. So you look back at these films, and you understand that, yeah, Venom itself, the most recent film, made over $800 million, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to handle an entire universe featuring Spider-Man and all the villains and all the characters within it that they still have the rights to in a proper fashion. So I think it looks bad for both of them, but I think all of us could at least admit that with all the news coming out recently, with the SEC filing against Disney for apparently fudging their numbers and pretending that they made billions more than they actually did, and now, of course, with Stan Lee's daughter coming out, that things really aren't looking all that good for them. So let's go ahead and dive into this article written by John F. Trent over at Bounding Into Comics. So Stan Lee's daughter, Joan Celia, J.C. Lee, ripped Marvel and Disney's executives while siding with Sony in the dispute over Spider-Man being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. J.C. spoke with TMZ, a very reliable news source, about Spider-Man exiting the MCU after negotiations between Sony and Disney fell apart. She stated, "Marvel and Disney seeking total control of my father's creations must be checked and balanced by others who, while still seeking the profit, have genuine respect for Stan Lee and his legacy." Whole hot damn, those are these fighting words right there from J.C. Lee. And I think that she has a very good point, because I don't think anyone's going to deny the fact that Disney has been doing nothing more than seeking money, seeking just money from all of the characters from all of the MCU lately, but has also probably been guilty of not doing things and not been respectful of anything. Look at what they've been doing to the characters. Look at what they've been suggesting for some of the characters of Stan Lee's creation. And I think all of us can say, yeah, they obviously don't understand the origins of those characters, and they obviously don't understand everything else. Now, some could easily counteract that by saying, yeah, but you know what? Stan Lee, at the end of the day, was in every single Marvel film, so he must have been treated with some respect. But it doesn't sound like, at the very least, his family was treated with that much respect either, which you'll get to in a little bit. She continues, "Whether it's Sony's or someone else's, the continued evolution of Stan's characters and his legacy deserves multiple points of view." I think that's a great point. I think that and that's the reason why I think a lot of us are siding with Sony over Disney when it comes down to this, because Disney is already such a large corporation, has already so much control of so many properties, that to give them Spider-Man, or to let them have some sense of control and even more control over Spider-Man, which is what they wanted, because they wanted a 50-50 split in at least the profit margins. What that would mean is that they would just be that much more powerful, and no company should have that much power. No company should be dominating this particular field, because at that point, you get to the point where you have to ask, are certain antitrust violations happening, because is competition still actually enabled? I mean, that's basically what you have here going on, and that's, I think, a question that we need to ask ourselves, especially when the top 6 high-grossing movies of the year are all Disney products. Even Spider-Man Far From Home itself, even though they only got about 5% of the actual profits, no one's going to deny that the Spider-Man machine, or rather that the Disney machine, helped Spider-Man reach the peak of $1 billion, seeing that all the other films up there are all Disney products as well. But she goes on. She adds, "When my father died, no one from Marvel or Disney reached out to me. From day one, they have commoditized my father's work and never shown him or his legacy any respect or decency." That's pretty awful. So basically, no one reached out to her, is her claim. No one from Disney or Marvel reached out to her. For someone that was so much a part of their universe, he was in every single Marvel film, or at least in some capacity in every single Marvel film. He was obviously the source of so much of their material, or at least one of the main sources of so much of their material. And they can't even reach out with a phone call to to Stan Lee's daughter after his death? that's, I mean, seriously, like that's about the same level as not allowing the child. Remember that there was a situation where the little child, Ollie, one of his last wishes was that Spider-Man would be on his gravestone, and that's what his father wanted, and he wasn't allowed to because Disney said, nope, that violates copyright and we own the rights to it, and you can't because we don't want our character associated with death, even though Spider-Man, of course, as we know, is a character that is always associated with death because it's always a part of his backstory, right? It's always, you know, either Uncle Ben or his parents. So it's interesting to me that they're just like, no, we don't want it to be associated with death, but it seems that they have a pattern here, right? So it seems that when that happens, they don't allow the father to have that on the gravestone. When Stan Lee dies, they will take the profits, they will go ahead and they will continue to make as a commodity all of his work, but they won't reach out to the father, to the family. They won't reach out and try and say our condolences or do anything for the family, according to her here. And of course, this is her word, and I think that it's a pretty powerful word nonetheless because it does seem to fit in line with what Disney has done in the past. Because as we know, Disney has gotten to the point where they are so big that it's very hard to see any human emotion in any of these people anymore. It looks like they are nothing more than a corporate overlord. Like it seems like they are nothing more than corporate people. And I think that is definitely to the point now where we need to start asking ourselves, does something need to be done? Do they need to be broken up in some capacity? I think there's definitely an argument that can be made that there is some trust violation going on here, especially when you look at what they've done, and I mention this all the time, in their foreign market deals. Because look at the fact that they are doing all this crazy business and they're shutting out so many other businesses in the process. And that's not competition. I'm okay with competition. I love competition. I love raw, unfettered competition. But when that competition is not allowed to proceed because of things like this, that's when some fettering might need to indeed happen. She goes on. JC concluded with some fire words aimed at Disney and Marvel. In the end, no one could have treated my father worse than Marvel and Disney's executives. So she goes on from there. So obviously she's not giving full details, but it seems to indicate that the relationship between them and Stan Lee and his family was not very good. So it raises the question, why was Stan Lee continuing to come back? Was he just under contract? Was he maybe at the point where he was just old enough to where he just wanted to, stay relevant? I don't know. I think these are questions that we can ask. But I think the fact that she's speaking for her father here, and obviously he can't speak for himself anymore, and so it's kind of unfair when you think about it. But if anyone could, it would be a family member. It would be someone like his daughter who could say, hey, I was looking at this from the outside, and this is what I was seeing. And also the fact that once he was gone, no longer did they care. No longer did they care about my family. It was once his name was done. Once he was gone, no longer did they have to give him any understanding, any recognition whatsoever. And you can say all you want about, oh, they talked about it on Twitter, they talked about it on Facebook. Just because a Twitter page or a Facebook page puts something out there does not mean that that company actually cares about what they're talking about. So what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you think that she is ripping them a new one? I really do think that this is the case. Before JC made her comments, public comments on TMZ, Hawkeye actor Jeremy Renner took on Instagram to ask Sony to bring Spider-Man back to the MCU. Renner invoked Stan Lee's writing, hey, Sony Pictures, we want Spider-Man back to Stan Lee and Marvel, please. I thank you. Isn't that interesting that he's going to go ahead and try and instill the name of Stan Lee, even though they are the ones that have had the rights to Spider-Man, and they, as a company, as Sony, have arguably the best Spider-Man film of all time, Spider-Man 2, which they did not need Disney for. So, Jeremy Renner, it sounds like you don't even know enough about the lore of Spider-Man to be able to possibly invoke the name of Stan Lee, and I think that's kind of despicable that you do so. And man, I'm all on your side with this other nonsense about you being ableist or something. I'm on your side of that, but I think that your comments here are just completely out of touch with reality and just not any base. But what are y'all's thoughts about this? Do you think that this is indeed the case? Apparently, the Hollywood Reporter indicated Disney wanted at least a 30% stake in the deal, so we have now a little bit more information that they asked initially for a 50-50 deal, but they said they wanted at least 30%, and Sony walked away. So it sounds like before when I said, like, maybe they'll take a 30% deal. No, doesn't sound like that's the case. Someone sent me a hilarious video, actually, and it's the clip from Bad Santa, where the worker there finally understands what they're trying to do. They're trying to rob the place, and so he says, I want in on the cut. And he says, I want 50. And they keep coming back with smaller numbers, and he keeps going 50, 50. And over his head is Disney, and over on the other side is Sony. And I think that's totally relevant here. But what do you think about all of this? What do you think about her comments? Do you think that Jeremy Renner has a right to invoke Stan Lee's name here by saying, return it to Stan Lee, even though we could easily argue that it's been with Sony for a very, very long time now, and that there really is no right to say that, especially knowing now, at least according to his daughter, that they did not reach out to her or their family after he passed on and have shown no respect to them. And as she even says, that no one could have treated them worse than Disney or Marvel, meaning that sounds to me, especially since she's siding with Sony, Sony must have reached out. Sony must have been paying respect. Sony, at the very least, must have had some respect for the legacy of his characters, some respect for the legacy of him as a person, even though, of course, they're also wanting to make money off of it because that's kind of the point of any business. It is interesting that there is this difference that seems to be. I would love to hear your thoughts about this and all the things we talked about in the comments below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Also, check me out on my secondary channel, Welcome to Asgard, which is very, very close to being at the monetization level. We're just waiting on watch hours now, but I'm about to make a video where I'm going to talk about a few new steelbooks that came in, one of which is a mini steelbook. Look how cute that is. So this is brand new to me. This is a Best Buy exclusive, and it's with the John Wick 3 4K Steelbook Edition, where you can pay, it's an extra $5, and you get this little tiny Steelbook case that has within it a digital code for the movie. I'm not sure if there's anything else in it, but I'm going to go ahead and open this and show this off and a couple of other things that I was able to pick up recently over on that channel. So go check that out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.